My name is Jade, I'm a 12-year-old girl, and I'm the village medium. Everyone within 10 miles, young and old, male and female, respectfully calls me Grandma Nine. That's because I rank ninth beneath King Yama and the city god. Zhang Kui, Kui Ju, Oxhead, Horseface, and Black and White Impermanence are all my senior brothers. After the Ghost Festival, a woman came to my door. On a sweltering summer day, the woman was wrapped head to toe, even a scarf around her neck. The moment she saw me, she burst into tears. "Grandma Nine, what's growing on me? I'm turning into a man," the woman said, reaching for her skirt. I was utterly shocked. "I am disabled. When I was 3, I was praying to the Skanda statue at the temple when it suddenly toppled, breaking both my legs. By the time I was 12, I had been in a wheelchair for 9 years. Only when I invite a deity to possess me can I experience the joy of standing, if only for a moment. Honestly, even now, I don't know what I did to offend the Skanda deity in the temple. Or perhaps, like my birth parents abandoning me, I worried that I might be the reincarnation of some unforgivable evil spirit, unlucky from birth. In truth, I was also afraid that I might genuinely be a monstrous, evil spirit, reincarnated with a heap of sins, destined to harm those around me. So, I was always very curious about my true identity and origins. When my blind Master Wu was alive, I begged him to read my fortune. He took it very seriously, setting up a specialized altar with sacrificial offerings to seek answers. But as soon as he wrote my bazi on a talisman and burned it, the altar exploded. My master coughed up 9 mouthfuls of blood and was bedridden for 49 days before he could get up again. Fearing he'd be harmed again, I never dared mention my origins to him after that. Later, when my master passed away, I inherited his mantle and became a famous medium throughout the region. Zhang Kui, Kui Ju, and Black and White Impermanence even became like siblings to me. I asked my second elder brother, Zhang Kui, about my past and origins, but he always remained tight-lipped. That day, I was contemplating my identity in the courtyard while drawing a dozen talismans. Afterwards, I chatted with my paper figures for a while. After the Ghost Festival, almost 2 weeks had passed without any work. All that free time actually made me a bit bored. Since I had nothing else to do, I decided to pull out my textbooks and tackle some math problems. But just as I opened the book and started writing, there was a sudden knock at the door. I rolled my wheelchair to open the door and saw someone outside who looked like a mummy. I called her a mummy because on a hot summer day, she seemed completely unaffected by the heat, wearing a long-sleeved shirt, a long white skirt, and even a scarf wrapped around her neck. In short, she was covered head to toe without a single gap. The moment she saw me, she burst into tears. "Are you Grandma Nine? I'm mutating. Please save me." I'd seen plenty of odd people, but someone claiming to be mutating was a first. My curiosity piqued. I invited her inside. In the courtyard, the woman seemed a little frightened by the paper figures sitting neatly on the stone bench. Casually, I collected them into my bag and told her to sit down and talk. "So, how are you mutating? Did you suddenly develop an urge for dismemberment or awaken some peculiar fetish? Honestly, these sound like psychological issues. You'd best consult a professional therapist." I can banish demons and exorcise ghosts, but guiding people towards goodness or being a life coach, please excuse my limited knowledge and patience for that. After hearing my questions, the woman hesitated for a moment, then without another word, began to undress. She first removed her hat and veil, revealing a woman's face in her 20s, with exquisitely beautiful features and eyes that held boundless charm. As a 6th grader with terrible writing skills, I didn't know what words to use to describe her beauty, but I dared to pat my still-developing chest and say, "She's the most beautiful woman I've ever seen in my life, so beautiful that even I felt a touch of admiration." Then the woman took off the scarf around her neck, her hands moving relentlessly as she took off her outer shirt. "Grandma Nine, look at my chest." I glanced at it, a little speechless. "Is it too small?" "But I don't offer cosmetic services." At this point, I began to suspect the woman in front of me wasn't quite right in the head. Had there been heavy rain recently, causing a mental hospital wall to collapse? The woman shook her head repeatedly, tears welling up in her eyes. "You don't understand, I used to be a D cup, but about half a month ago, my breasts suddenly started shrinking. It's been changing almost every day, and now even an A cup is hard to maintain. I know what you're thinking, but it's not ruptured implants because I've never had breast augmentation. The woman shed tears of grievance. More importantly, something shouldn't be growing down below. She finished speaking, took a deep breath, and with a blush, bravely pulled down her skirt. With just one glance, I was stunned, my heart seized with fright. This woman truly wasn't exaggerating. She was gradually transforming into a male. Grandma Nine, I'm turning into a man. The woman utterly collapsed, crying to the point of nearly fainting. Put your clothes back on first. Honestly, this was the first time I'd ever witnessed such a thing, and I couldn't help but feel a little embarrassed, my heart pounding. But my master had taught me that in our line of work, we must never show fear in front of outsiders. So, I remained outwardly calm, as if I were accustomed to such extraordinary events. The woman obediently put her clothes back on, looking miserable. Now I don't dare leave the house, and moving around is so inconvenient. I truly don't know what to do. I cleared my throat softly. Have you considered going to the hospital for surgery? The woman shook her head. I have a feeling that even if I cut it off, it will grow back. That magical? Like a gecko's tail? What exactly is happening to you? I've heard that in Thailand, some poor boys take female hormones from a young age and then grow female breasts to transition. I didn't say it directly, but my meaning was clear. The woman vehemently denied it. I'm not Thai. I've always been a woman since I was little. I suspect I've been cursed. I didn't pay much attention to that comment. People have 3 spiritual lamps on their head and shoulders, which ordinary ghosts cannot approach. Furthermore, as far as I knew, no evil spirits or demons could cause a person to change gender. If they truly could, what would be the point of gender reassignment surgery in this world? But to comfort the woman, I decided to perform a test. I rolled my wheelchair to the altar room, took a handful of glutinous rice from my bag. Back in the courtyard, I told the woman to put the glutinous rice in her mouth. Hold it there, don't swallow. Only spit it out when I tell you. I timed it for 3 minutes, then told the woman to spit the rice onto a stone table. The results were startling. The originally pristine white glutinous rice had indeed turned black, as if soaked in ink, and emitted a foul, fishy odor. My initial indifferent expression vanished. The yin energy was extremely potent. She truly was cursed. The woman looked at the pitch-black rice grains, terrified, and burst into tears again. I grabbed 2 bottles of drinking yogurt, one for myself, and handed one to her, then slowly began to chat with her. The woman introduced herself as Sora, 23 years old, and recounted a series of strange events that began on the morning of August 14th. First, she received a text notification that her bank account had suddenly received a transfer of 1 billion dong. Thinking someone had made a mistake, she went to the bank to investigate. The sender's information was blank. She asked the bank to reverse the transaction. But no matter how the bank staff tried, the money seemed to have taken root in her account, completely untransferable. Ultimately, the bank staff could only attribute it to a system error, guessing her computer might have a virus, and scheduled it for later. Next, that afternoon, something even more terrifying happened at her company. Within an hour, 9 colleagues successively jumped to their deaths. After police investigated the scene, the conclusion was that all 9 had committed suicide. However, Sora felt a pang of guilt because all 9 of these colleagues had previously had conflicts with her. Some were former employees who bullied her, some were superiors who manipulated her with words, and others were male colleagues who harassed her. Even stranger that night, as she slept at home, just after midnight, she heard the distinct sound of horse hooves and gongs and drums emanating from outside. The gongs and drums echoed to the heavens. 10,000 horses galloped in enormous commotion. Yet, bizarrely, her best friend, who shared the room, heard nothing at all. Curious, Sora opened her window to look out and indeed discovered a large crowd below the building. Leading them was a brawny young man with sword-like eyebrows and phoenix eyes, clad in glistening silver armor, riding a tall, black horse without a single stray hair. Beside the young man, a bright red wedding palanquin stopped, adorned with red silk ribbons and embroidered balls, carried by 4 smiling attendants. Behind the young man were 18 large drums and 2 rows of a brass band playing horns and drums. Further behind was a dense army of several thousand armored soldiers, all mounted on horses. Whose grand wedding is this in the middle of the night? And they're even acting out a historical drama. This scene is so magnificent, a wedding of the century. Sora stood by the window, watching in admiration. The next second, the silver-armored young man below suddenly looked up at Sora, then spurred his horse to her window. Sora's eyes widened in shock. She was on the 24th floor. The silver-armored young man offered her a joyous smile. Sora's mind became hazy, and she felt dizzy. Then, the silver-armored young man took her hand, led her out the window, and gently lowered her in front of the wedding palanquin. He then drew the palanquin curtain for Sora to enter. Sora, like a puppet, offered no resistance and obediently complied. The wedding procession then set off. The silver-armored young man took Sora to an ancient villa where opera was being performed in the courtyard. She was then held captive in that house by the silver-armored young man for 7 days. During that time, the two became very close. I'm not usually such an easy woman, otherwise I wouldn't have been a virgin at 23. But facing that man, I seemed unable to refuse. On the contrary, I was deeply infatuated with him. 7 days later, when I woke up, I found myself in my own bed at home, as if the previous experiences had just been a dream. But then, I was horrified to discover my body was unwell. My breasts had shrunk, not to mention something was growing down below. I knew this must be connected to that night's encounter. I searched online, and some said a midnight wedding procession is called a ghost marriage. That young man was definitely not human. After Sora finished speaking, she was both agitated and frightened, trembling all over. I sighed silently, motioning for her to drink some yogurt to calm down, but my heart felt far from relieved. This wasn't just a simple ghost marriage. By the way, do you remember what opera was being performed at the ancient villa that night? Sora thought for a moment, then said, I'm not familiar with traditional opera, but there were only 2 characters on stage, one with a big flower face makeup and a woman. The woman used a treasured sword to commit suicide. From the lyrics, it sounded like "Farewell, my concubine." She paused there, and my expression grew serious. If something comes to mind, say it quickly. Sora shyly said, that young man must also be an opera enthusiast, so engrossed that he completely immersed himself in the role. When we were intimate, he kept calling me Consort Yu. The name Consort Yu, combined with the "Farewell, my concubine" opera, clearly revealed the identity of the silver-armored young man. It turned out to be the deity of Mount Bayan causing trouble. The deity of Mount Bayan's name is Xiang Yu, the rebel leader at the end of the Qin dynasty. The Hegemon-King of Chu, he burned down Eping Palace and destroyed the Qin Empire. During his lifetime, he was unmatched in bravery. Later generations often used 8 characters to describe him. Xiang's divine bravery, unique through the ages. After losing the Chu Han contention to Liu Bang, Xiang Yu committed suicide at Wujiang, and Consort Yu died with him. After Xiang Yu's death, heaven and earth were moved by his unparalleled heroism, and he was enfeoffed as the deity of Mount Bayan. If it truly is Xiang Yu, then this is quite troublesome. The Hegemon-King of Chu in his lifetime was the most powerful warrior under heaven, and now he is a righteous god. His combat strength is unimaginable. But there's a very strange point. As a righteous god, under normal circumstances, he wouldn't harm innocent girls like an evil deity would. Unless Sora is special in some way. And is her masculinization related to Xiang Yu or to her own unique circumstances? Of course, this Xiang Yu business is currently just my speculation. What if it's some demon or ghost impersonating him? Seeing my silence, Sora clearly panicked. Grandma 9, what should I do now? I thought for a moment, then asked her, do you dare to take a spirit journey? Sora looked confused. What's a spirit journey? A spirit journey, also known as crossing over in some places, is when I open a door to the underworld for you. You go by yourself to find the 3 lives stone and examine your past and present lives there. To solve your problem, I fear we must first clarify your past. Hearing this, Sora's face turned pale. Grandma 9, you want me to go to the underworld? Won't there be many ghosts? Indeed, there are quite a few ghosts, but this is the only plan we have right now. Whether you do it or not is up to you to consider. Sora's face was filled with fear. Will ghosts eat me? I immediately comforted her. Under normal circumstances, there won't be any danger. I'll be watching over you. Sora fell silent, seeming conflicted, but finally nodded. I'll try. If I truly turn into a man later, I'd rather die. Good, follow me. I rolled my wheelchair into the room, first gathering some tools, then led Sora to my backyard. There was an old well there. I told her to push the well cover aside, revealing the ancient well. This well is called the Spirit Journey Well. It's like any ordinary water well, the only difference being that its opening is small, just enough for a head to fit, so a person won't fall down. I took out a 5 Emperor's coin from my bag and gave it to Sora to hold under her tongue. Then I raised my hand and patted the top of her head and both shoulders, weakening her 3 lamps. Next, kneel beside the well, head pointing downwards into the well opening. Remember, do not open your mouth or spit out the 5 Emperor's coin at any time, or your soul won't be able to return. Sora followed each step, but fear made her tremble as she knelt. She could only repeat to herself, trying to find comfort, "Grandma 9 is watching over me, I'll be fine." At this moment, her head was inverted into the well opening. Her vision was nothing but darkness, and in the stillness, she could only hear her own breathing. A moment later, a ticking sound of water began to appear in her ears, as if raindrops were falling from above. As the dripping intensified, she began to feel dizzy and disoriented, then strangely realized she seemed to be getting closer and closer to the bottom of the well. What was originally pitch black due to the distance gradually became clear, with rippling waves. She felt a bone-chilling cold, as if someone was blowing cold air into her head. Suddenly, countless black hands reached out from the bottom of the well, grabbing her head. Some of these hands were ghostly white skeletons, others rotting flesh, clinging to Sora's head like a pack of starved wolves, finally seeing the flesh and bone of a living creature, holding on tightly and pulling her down with force. Sora clearly felt her scalp being torn, and then the dripping water in her ears turned into the desperate wails of ghosts and howls of wolves, along with whispers. The next second, Sora was forcefully pulled down into the water by those sinister hands. She looked up, horrified, to see a disheveled woman hanging upside down from the well opening, her face pale, lips tightly pressed, as if already dead. Outside the spirit well, I sat in my wheelchair, constantly observing Sora's movements. When I saw her chest stop rising and falling, I took a candle, then used a needle to prick Sora's right index finger. Waiting for blood to appear, I squeezed a drop onto the candle, then lit it and placed it on the edge of the well. The index finger connects to the heart, so the drop of blood squeezed from the index finger is equivalent to one's life essence. A candle mixed with life essence is no longer just a simple candle, it represents Sora's fate. Therefore, this candle is called a fate candle. Those in our profession can observe the flame of a fate candle to determine the current situation of someone undertaking a spirit journey. A strong flame indicates safety, a dim flame signifies danger, and a flickering, dying flame means death. When a person dies, their lamp goes out is a literal image in our underworld realm, not just a metaphor. At this moment, Sora's fate candle was burning quite strongly, so I could leisurely continue drinking my yogurt while pondering Xiang Yu's purpose in violating the principles of a righteous god by coercing Sora, a mortal girl. Sora said she looked it up online and found ghost marriage, but I could confirm it was not that. She had been taken for 7 full days, during which she was with him for 7 days, undergoing 81 instances of yin-yang union. It's important to know that these numbers, 7 and 81, are not simple. In the 8 trigrams, 7 represents the yin number, and in folk beliefs, it also represents death and reincarnation. That's why rituals for the dead are done weekly, from the 1st to the 7th week, with the final completion on the 49th day. As for 81 in Buddhist teachings, it also represents perfection. There's a Buddhist saying, 9 nines return to 1, achieving true enlightenment. That's why the Tang monks' journey for scriptures endured 81 trials, not one more, not one less. It was precisely for this reason that when Sora mentioned these 2 numbers, 2 words immediately popped into my head. Ritual. So, I could boldly guess that Xiang Yu was performing some kind of ritual for Sora. Was her masculinization caused by this ritual, or was Sora's masculinization the very outcome Xiang Yu desired? These answers would likely be explained after Sora finished examining the 3 lives stone. Just then, the flame of Sora's fate candle suddenly grew dim, becoming increasingly darker, as if it would extinguish in the next second. I quickly grabbed a handful of joss paper, immediately burning it over the fate candle, then held one of Sora's legs and shouted towards the well opening, "Jade is working. Please facilitate this, esteemed spirits." The echo traveled down the well, but there was no response. But immediately after, the flame of Sora's fate candle suddenly flared up brightly again. I leaned back in my wheelchair, observing the changes calmly. After that, Sora's fate candle dimmed several more times, but under my careful attention, it ultimately did not go out. By now, as time passed, It had been nearly 3 hours since Sora began her spirit journey, and the sun was setting. I knew it was time to call her back. A spirit journey should not be too long. Prolonged exposure to yin energy can lead to severe illness at best, or soul damage at worst. I first placed my copper scissor magical artifact across my lap, then reached out and grabbed Sora's hair. Finally, I shouted loudly towards the well opening, "Sora, if not now, then when will you return?" After 3 continuous shouts, Sora's body suddenly began to convulse violently. I used one hand to pull her up from the well opening, and along with her head emerging from the well were dozens of black hands. These hands seemed unwilling to let her go, wanting to drag her back into the well. With my other hand, I picked up the copper scissors and chopped twice directly at those dozens of hands. The copper scissors were cast in the shape of the yin-yang Taiji fish, a powerful tool for severing souls and spirits. 1 cut for life, 2 for death. Those dozens of hands, once severed, quickly recoiled back into the well. I raised my hand and tapped Sora's head and shoulders a few times, reigniting her 3 lamps. A moment later, Sora slowly opened her eyes. "First, spit out the coin in your mouth, then tell me what you saw down there." Sora sighed, clearly still terrified by her recent spirit journey experience. She took a deep breath before speaking. "When I first went down, I saw a road, and many people were walking on it, men and women, old and young. I didn't know where to find the 3 lives stone, and when I asked these people, they said nothing. I could only follow them. I don't know how long I walked, my legs were exhausted, and there was nowhere to rest on the road. I thought to myself, the road to the Yellow Springs has no inns, so of course there's nowhere to rest. Then, suddenly, several fierce, murderous figures with chains appeared and started chasing me. I just ran, but in the end they caught me. I was panicking, not knowing what to do when I heard Grandma Nine's voice. You said, 'Jade is working. Please facilitate this, esteemed spirits.' So those figures released me. Those fierce, murderous figures were probably underworld emissaries, but I didn't pay attention to that. I cut her off. You don't need to tell me those trivial details. Did you see the 3 live stone?" Sora nodded. "I saw the 3 live stone. It's on the bank of the river of forgetfulness and by the bridge of helplessness, a giant white rock." I hummed. The 3 live stone is one of the most treasured artifacts of the underworld. Standing before it, one can see their past, present, and future lives. "Tell me what you saw." Sora took a deep breath, her voice filled with excitement and trembling. "I saw the Chu-Han contention, saw Hegemon-King Xiang Yu charging onto the battlefield, invincible among the enemy. I also saw him defeated and surrounded, hearing his tragic song. My strength uproots mountains, my spirit dominates the world, but the times are against me and my horse will not gallop. My horse will not gallop, what can I do? Consort Yu, how I miss you." Sora couldn't hold back her tears as she spoke. He was such an arrogant and heroic man, now surrounded by enemies on all sides. I couldn't bear to see his distressed state, so I drew my sword and committed suicide. So, farewell, my concubine was real, and I was Consort Yu. The silver-armored young man who kidnapped me looked exactly like Xiang Yu. He must be Xiang Yu's spirit. I teased, "Indeed, it's Xiang Yu's spirit, no doubt, but not a ghost. Your Hegemon King was enfeoffed as the deity of Mount Bayan after his death. So he became a god." Sora genuinely felt happy for Xiang Yu. "Yes, that's why people say heroes are judged by their success or failure, but that's not entirely true. Heavenly principles and human hearts also have their own judgments." I told Sora to close the spirit well, then led her back to the front courtyard. I then inserted Cinnabar into her 7 orifices: ears, nose, mouth, and tongue to stabilize her soul and prevent any lingering effects from the spirit journey, such as losing her 3 souls. After stabilizing her soul, I told Sora that the cause of the problem was now clear. The next step was to directly confront the deity of Mount Bayan, ask his intentions, and then her masculinization problem might find its root cause and solution. As the saying goes, the one who tied the bell must untie it, and currently everything pointed to Xiang Yu. Sora naturally had no objections to this, but she hesitated for a moment before finally telling me something. "Grandma Nine, when I saw myself before the stone, I also saw a scene. My body was unearthed by a middle-aged man, who then said something to a Taoist priest named Zifeng. The Taoist priest Zifeng listened with a solemn expression and finally nodded. After that, they found a secret room and wrapped my body entirely in golden fabric. Then I heard a voice calling me, and I felt my body become light and float upwards. Then I woke up. The situation had taken an unexpected turn. This Taoist priest Zifeng, I guessed, was Zhang Liang, one of the 3 heroes of the early Han dynasty, for Zhang Liang's courtesy name was Zifeng. Few people knew that Zhang Liang was well-versed in Taoist arts. After the founding of the Han dynasty, he wandered the 4 seas, later becoming an immortal and serving as the Grand Profound Boy beside the Grand Pure One. During the Northern Song dynasty, he was further enfeoffed as true person Lingxu, and his 8th-generation descendant was the illustrious celestial master Zhang Daoling. As for the middle-aged man, there was no clue for now. I hoped Zhang Liang and this middle-aged man weren't too involved in Sora's affairs, or things would become complicated. But first, we still had to meet Xiang Yu. Mount Bayan is in Hezhu, Zhejiang, towering majestically on the southern shore of Tehu Lake, about 500 or 600 li from us. But I have a rule: I cannot walk nor can I ride in a vehicle. I can only travel by palanquin. If we carried a palanquin to Mount Bayan, it would take at least 10 days to half a month. At Sora's rate of transformation, I feared that in 10 days her breasts would completely vanish, and her Adam's apple and beard would grow, making her a complete man. Hearing this outcome, Sora was so scared she burst into tears. Left with no choice, I could only go to the desolate graveyard and pick up 5 lonely wild ghosts, using the 5 ghosts carrying palanquin technique. The 5 ghosts carrying palanquin can travel 1,000 li a day, as fast as a train. Of course, kings don't regret starving soldiers. King Yama doesn't regret starving ghosts. So before we set off, I told Sora to buy 500 yuan worth of joss paper and burn it on the spot for these 5 wild ghosts. Sora pushed me, wheelchair and all, into the black palanquin in my house. Then, 2 ghosts stood at each end of the palanquin, with one leading the way in front. Sora couldn't sit in this black palanquin because it was adorned with paintings of the 6 paths of reincarnation. Once carried, the 6 paths of reincarnation would circulate around it, and a cultivator who wasn't strong enough could easily turn into a pig upon exiting. So, I casually threw a hand-sized paper horse to the ground. The paper horse fell, swelled up with the wind, and transformed into a real horse. I told Sora to ride it so as not to scare others. I chose to set off after midnight that day, and by the next morning, we had arrived at the foot of Mount Bayan. I rolled my wheelchair out of the palanquin, took 3 sticks of golden incense from my bag, and waved them into the air. The golden incense automatically ignited. I held the incense above my head, bowed to the 4 directions, then stuck them into a rock crevice at my feet. Facing the towering mountain, hundreds of meters high, I declared loudly, "Before the Hall of Yama, below the city God's Court, Jade comes to Mount Bayan, requesting the deity of Mount Bayan to appear and meet." After shouting, I told Sora to hide behind the palanquin. As soon as she hid, a thunderous sound of horse hooves erupted from the mountain ahead. Then, a cavalry of 1,000 soldiers surged forward. The leader, clad in glistening silver armor, was majestic and imposing, with sword-like eyebrows and phoenix eyes, staring directly at me, exuding unparalleled dominance. "Jade, I know who you are, but you are an official of the underworld, while I belong to the righteous gods of the mortal realm. What business do you have with me?" I smiled. "This humble girl has come to deliver a bride to the Hegemon-King." I signaled for Sora to come out from behind the palanquin. The moment Xiang Yu saw Sora, his expression drastically changed. "Consort Yu, quickly leave here." Sora was about to say something when she suddenly felt her entire body turn cold. Her 3 treasures of essence, Qi, and spirit transformed into a white smoke, continuously flowing towards Xiang Yu. Sora herself collapsed to the ground, as if her vital essence was being sucked dry. I immediately panicked, quickly bent down, lifted Sora, and threw her into my 6 paths of reincarnation palanquin. This palanquin possesses the power of the 6 paths of reincarnation and is a magical artifact itself, so as soon as Sora entered it, her 3 treasures' connection to Xiang Yu was naturally severed. At this point, the palanquin wasn't being carried away, so there was no need to worry about Sora turning into a pig after entering and then exiting. After settling Sora safely, I turned and coldly stared at Xiang Yu. "You, the deity of Mount Bayan, dare to use such dark arts to absorb someone's 3 treasures and harm her spiritual foundation." Xiang Yu glared back at me, not only feeling no fault but also falsely accusing me. "Jade, you almost ruined my great endeavor. Now, quickly take her and leave, or today, I won't show anyone any mercy, and I will definitely make you pay a heavy price. His attitude directly provoked me. You evil deity, it's a waste that your name is preserved in history, yet you're so despicable. Today, I, your elder aunt, shall uphold the righteous path of the gods and abolish your divine title. Xiang Yu forcefully wielded the sky dragon city-breaking halberd in his hand, his expression arrogant. Such big words, you want to slay a god? Then let this deity test how much weight you carry. As he spoke, he waved his hand behind him, signaling his subordinates not to interfere. Then an immense divine might directly pressed down on me. I was almost pressed to the point of being unable to move. Xiang Yu then chanted, "My strength uproots mountains, my spirit dominates the world." And with a casual flick of his finger, the main peak of Mount Bayan lifted from the ground and flew towards me. Indeed, it was Hegemon-King Xiang Yu, whose strength uprooted mountains and whose spirit dominated the world. This guy was a righteous god. Normally, the spells I used to exorcise ghosts and suppress evil would be completely ineffective against him. So, I could only use a summoning incantation to call a deity. Xiang Yu was a figure from the late Qin dynasty, many years earlier than my senior brothers Zhang Kui, Kui Ju, and Black and White Impermanence. His divine power and cultivation were naturally far more profound than theirs. Therefore, I had to summon an even older and more powerful deity than Xiang Yu. I quickly used the copper scissors to cut my index finger, then dabbed the blood on my forehead, pressed my palms together, holding them before my dantian, and began chanting the summoning incantation. By the three pure edicts, Supreme 3 Qi Golden Dragon Divine Arrow, Qi moves and spirit unfolds, by sacred command, I respectfully summon the immortal maiden Bixio Nianyang to aid me in slaying a god. The moment the incantation ended, lightning flashed and thunder boomed around Mount Bayan. A figure, welcomed by 9 streaks of lightning, descended. This person had a round face and phoenix eyes, an arrogant demeanor, clad in resplendent robes, wearing 5-colored shoes with a golden crown, exuding overwhelming power. It was none other than the third sister, Bixio Nianyang, from the 3 immortal maidens of responsive manifestation. She became a deity at the end of the Shang dynasty, over 1,000 years earlier than Xiang Yu, and was known for being even more arrogant, rebellious, lawless, and unrestrained. She had once dared to draw her sword against the primordial celestial venerable, a saint, in the 9-bend Yellow River formation. Bixio Nianyang's phoenix eyes swept across the entire scene, then fixed on me, and she smiled charmingly. "Little rascal, you truly are a lawless and unrestrained one yourself. The last few times you invited my eldest and second sisters, it was only to slay demons. This time, you invite me to slay a god. Do you know that this deity of Mount Bayan is also a righteous god enfeoffed by the heavenly court? The heavenly court has always forbidden private duels between immortals. Aren't you bringing disaster upon me?" Although her tone was reproachful, I sensed she wasn't truly angry. I suddenly remembered what King Xiao Nianyang had said last time and tentatively said, "When my niece runs into trouble, she naturally comes to her aunt. If my little aunt doesn't help me, I'll go tell on you." Hearing this, Bixio Nianyang exclaimed in surprise, "You already know your identity. Eldest brother, no, I'm wrong, you little rascal, you dared to trick me." My heart pounded. Bixio Nianyang didn't deny the address, aunt, and even mentioned eldest brother. Could I truly be related to that golden dragon wish-fulfilling true monarch of the dragon-tiger mysterious altar? Just as I was about to open my mouth to confirm, Bixio Nianyang glared at me, thinking, "This little rascal can't be allowed to speak anymore." As soon as she finished speaking, she flew directly towards me and possessed my body. The next second, I was possessed by Bixio Nianyang, and my entire being exuded an overwhelming aura. I slapped the armrest of my wheelchair and stood up. "Little mountain god, though this immortal maiden cannot kill you, giving you a good beating to vent my granddaughter's anger is perfectly fine." As she spoke, she waved her hand towards the sky, and from among the clouds, 2 magical artifacts descended into her hands, the Hunyuan Golden Dipper and the Golden Dragon Arrow. Xiang Yu felt the terrifying aura emanating from the Hunyuan Golden Dipper and Golden Dragon Arrow, and he was completely stunned. He, of course, knew the formidable reputation of the 3 immortal maidens of responsive manifestation, and knew he was definitely not their opponent. However, his arrogant nature wouldn't allow him to admit defeat before even fighting, so he gripped his sky dragon city-breaking halberd, patted the back of his black steed, and charged towards Bixiao Niangyang. They only exchanged 2 blows, and Xiang Yu fell to the ground. Bixiao Niangyang frowned at Xiang Yu and loudly declared, "No more fighting. Your primordial spirit is very weak and your divine essence is only half complete. There's no point in fighting." As she spoke, she looked towards my palanquin, then smiled and said, "So that's it. This immortal maiden understands now. You truly have a soft heart, a peerless general of 1,000 years, reduced to such a state because of romantic attachments." After saying this, Bixiao Niangyang immediately left my body and vanished with the 5-colored auspicious clouds, leaving only a meaningful warning. "Don't you dare truly bully my granddaughter, or this immortal maiden will disregard all heavenly court rules." After all, in the investiture of the gods' war, quite a few immortals were cut into 2 by my golden dragon arrow. Bixiao Niangyang had just left as decisively as if she were fleeing. I could only sit back in my wheelchair, but her words also made me realize something. Perhaps I had misunderstood Xiang Yu. "So, you weren't withdrawing Sora's 3 treasures, but rather sharing half of your divine essence with her." Xiang Yu looked somewhat weak at this point, and he smiled bitterly. "Jade, you should know that Sora is the reincarnation of Consort Yu. How could I harm her?" Through Xiang Yu's account, I finally fully understood the whole story. It turned out Sora had died a long time ago. She had always been bullied at work. That day, after returning home, she contemplated suicide. She said that the strange events she experienced the day before the Ulambana festival were all caused by her. The sudden billion dong in her bank account was ghost money her family had burned for her after she died. She said that 9 colleagues jumped from the company building that afternoon. In reality, she had pushed those colleagues down. It was just that at the time, she was a ghost, so the police naturally couldn't find any traces of murder and could only attribute it to suicide. For a ghost to kill someone in the underworld is a grave sin, and they would be cast down to the 18 layers of hell to suffer, with each life costing 100 years. So, if Sora went to the underworld, she would surely suffer 900 years of punishment in the 18 layers of hell. Xiang Yu knew Sora was the reincarnation of Consort Yu and didn't want her to die and then suffer in hell. So, he harmed himself, splitting off half of his divine essence. Through the method of yin-yang exchange, divided into 9981 instances, he poured it into Sora's body, and the 2 also had to stay together for 7 days. 7 days later, the 2 parted ways. 49 days later, the divine essence in Sora's body would automatically absorb and integrate. In this way, she would also become one of the mountain gods of Mount Bayan. The laws of the underworld would naturally not be able to govern her. However, before the full 49 days, the divine essence in Sora's body was not yet fixed. If she met Xiang Yu, the original owner of this divine essence, the divine essence in Sora's body would automatically return to Xiang Yu. This was why Xiang Yu bristled the moment he saw Sora. And it was precisely because of the divine essence's protection that I didn't immediately realize the truth that Sora was already dead. The heavenly court doesn't allow this ritual, does it? After all, if it succeeded, wouldn't it create a new god without official enfeoffment? If every god did this, wouldn't the heavenly court fall into chaos? Xiang Yu listened with an indifferent expression. Of course, it's not allowed. The heavenly court might abolish my divine title later, turn me back into a wild ghost, and send me into reincarnation. Because there can only be one deity of Mount Bayan. As for every god following suit, that's an unnecessary worry. I doubt many gods would do it. As he said this, Xiang Yu's entire body unconsciously trembled. I immediately understood what he meant. Splitting off your divine essence hurts that much? Xiang Yu's face was pale, and he forced a bitter smile. The pain of 1,000 cuts and 10,000 insects gnawing is not even a fraction of it. My goodness, how painful was that? Just thinking about it made me shiver. At this point, everything seemed to be concluded. The next step was simply to wait for Sora to fully absorb the divine essence in her body, wake up, and inherit the position of the mountain god of Mount Bayan. Xiang Yu invited us to temporarily stay by the Tehu Lake at the foot of Mount Bayan. I had thought that Sora's masculinization was an inevitable result or a side effect of that god creation ritual, so I hadn't asked Xiang Yu about it. 1 month after Xiang Yu had first taken Sora, exactly 49 days had passed. As I led Sora out of the dilapidated house at the foot of the mountain, Xiang Yu, who had been waiting for a long time, was stunned when he saw her. "Liu Qi, why is it you?" Liu Bang, whose courtesy name was Qi, was the founding emperor of the Han Dynasty in Chinese history. I was a little dumbfounded. Why did Xiang Yu think Sora was Liu Bang? At this moment, Sora had indeed completely masculinized. Not only had her breasts disappeared, but her Adam's apple and beard were also present. Even her appearance had changed significantly, completely different from the Sora I knew before. If I hadn't been by her side every day, constantly witnessing her changes, anyone would have thought she was someone else. I tried to explain to Xiang Yu, "This is Sora. The side effect of your god creation ritual will cause the chosen person to change gender. You must know this, right?" Xiang Yu, however, shook his head with a solemn expression. "The ritual has no such effect whatsoever. Liu Qi, stop pretending to be mute. I want to hear you speak." Liu Bang looked at Xiang Yu, his eyes slightly red. "Xiang Yu, I never thought that after more than 1,000 years you would still recognize me at first glance. I am deeply moved. In the past, you and I knew each other under your uncle Xiang Liang. We fought Zhang Han and killed Li Yu together. Though our ages differed, our bond was like brothers. Later, we each led our armies, our destinies not our own. At the Hongmen banquet, the world believed Xiang Bo saved me, but I knew you held back, not wanting to kill me. You merely went with the flow. Trapped at Gaixia, I didn't want to kill you, but you committed suicide at Wujiang, leaving me with a reputation for disloyalty. You and I never even met in the end. That year, after the Battle of Gaixia, I ordered someone to find Consort Yu's body, then commanded Zifeng to use Taoist arts to seal Consort Yu's 3 souls within her body. Hearing this, I immediately understood the second, love tribulation scene Sora had seen by the 3 live stone. It turned out the middle-aged man was Liu Bang, and the Taoist priest was Zhang Liang. This matched what Sora and I had initially guessed. I had some basic knowledge of soul-sealing techniques, but as far as I knew, a soul-sealing technique could only last for 7 years at most. After 7 years, the seal would expire. Liu Bang's voice continued in my ear. "Later, I founded the Great Han Dynasty, but I always felt guilty towards you, regretting that I couldn't meet you and apologize. 7 years later, I fell gravely ill. On my deathbed, I pleaded with Zifeng. Zifeng told me he had calculated that you and Consort Yu still had an unfinished destiny. If I agreed, he would use Taoist arts, borrowing the power of the Big Dipper, to hide my 3 souls within Consort Yu's 3 souls. When you and Consort Yu met again, you and I would also be able to meet again. Zifeng truly didn't deceive me, I just didn't expect it to take over 1,000 years. Xiang Yu, I, Liu Bang, am at fault towards you. Perhaps you don't wish to see me again. From now on, you and I have a connection, but no shared fate." After Liu Bang finished these words, he seemed to have no more lingering burdens. He looked at Xiang Yu one last time, transformed into a streak of light, and headed towards the underworld for reincarnation. After Liu Bang's spirit vanished, Sora's masculine characteristics instantly disappeared. She reverted to her original gentle and beautiful appearance. So, the root of everything was Liu Bang. He was hiding within Consort Yu's soul, which is why Sora had 2 souls in one body, leading to the dual gender characteristics and the appearance of masculine traits. Xiang Yu sighed. "Liu Bang and I were both played by fate. I never blamed him." I was pondering. Liu Bang and Xiang Yu seemed to have a decent relationship. Did Liu Bang truly die of illness 7 years after ascending the throne? Was it possible that he knew the seal on Consort Yu's soul was about to expire, and so he took his own life? Sora, now fully aware of the story's details, threatened to self-detonate her soul, forcing Xiang Yu to retrieve the half of the divine essence from her, and then actively went to the underworld to plead guilty. According to her, I, Sora, whether in my past life or this life, am not someone who implicates her man. Under my arrangement, my 2 senior brothers, Zhang Kui and Kui Ju, acknowledged that Sora's killings had a justifiable cause. Therefore, they sentenced her to help Lady Meng brew soup at the Bridge of Helplessness for 100 years as a warning.